The deadline to get vaccinated quickly approaches for over 80 million Americans. Could children get vaccinated before the holidays? We'll tell you how the timeline plays out. And Oklahoma's cold and gloomy now, but will it warm up for the weekend? We're tracking those temperatures. This is OU Nightly. Hello, thanks for joining us for OU Nightly. I'm Kolby Terrell.
And I'm Alyse Jones. We begin with the Biden administration's latest plan to battle the spread of COVID-19 as the holidays roll around. A new deadline in the vaccine mandate plan has been set. CNN's Chris Wynn has the details on this time frame that is set to impact more than 100 million workers in the U.S.
In the fight against COVID-19, the Biden administration announcing Thursday large companies across the country now have until January 4th to ensure that their employees are fully vaccinated.
We know the most disruptive thing in a workforce is to have a COVID outbreak.
The sweeping new health measure covers 84 million private sector workers and applies to businesses with 100 or more employees. OSHA says companies should provide paid time off for employees to get vaccinated, as well as sick leave for side effects. Workers who are not vaccinated by then must get weekly testing.
We know that vaccines absolutely save lives, and we know that mandates work.
Federal contractors, as well as 17 million workers at healthcare facilities that receive either Medicare or Medicaid funding, are also now required to meet the same January 4th deadline. The plan, which was first announced in September by President Biden, directed the Labor Department to invoke its emergency powers over workplace safety. But critics say it could further impact labor shortages and supply chain issues.
And these job ultimatums, I think, can only move the economy in a much worse direction.
President Biden pushing back on concerns in a statement saying in part, there have been no mass firings and worker shortages because of vaccine requirements. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn.
Today's announcement also makes clear that the federal vaccine rules supersede any state or local laws aimed at banning mandates. Texas and Florida, among other states, have been attempting to pass their own laws restricting such mandates.
That mandate will also impact OU employees. All faculty, staff, and student workers are required to show proof of vaccination. This includes student employees too. Everyone has until December 8th to become vaccinated. Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson vaccinations will be accepted by the university. Faculty and staff say they are aware of the new rule but have not yet heard how it will be tracked or enforced.
We did receive an email from, I'm thinking, the president or somebody administrative wise, but we really haven't been given further instructions yet on how we're to, what's supposed to happen next. So next steps have not come to us.
OU Human Resources is expected to release further information on what employees need to do by December 8th.
The Oklahoma State Health Department reports 631 new COVID-19 cases. That brings the active cases to around 5,000 Oklahomans. The state's death count has reached 11,409 people. About half of Oklahoma is fully vaccinated, while nearly 60% has at least one dose. And some vaccine shortages may be harder to get vaccinated due to that, but later on our Health Beat reporter will give you those details.
Well, we're missing the sun this week, but maybe it'll be back in time for our weekend plans, Alyse.
Meteorologist Coy Taylor is live in the South Oval to tell us if the sun will come out tomorrow.
Yes, we'll see the sun come out tomorrow, as we will see temperatures right now in the 50s across the state. We're socked in the cloud cover, and that's what we're going to be seeing. Sunshine out in the Panhandle right now. They're pushing near 70 degrees in Guyman, and we will be seeing that sunshine as we head into your Friday and into this weekend. Warmer weather expected for this weekend as we fall back the clock 1 hour on Sunday. Then we'll see an Arctic air mass set to move into Norman later on next week. Peyton will have much more on that during Maine weather here in a little bit. Alyse, back to you.
Thanks, Coy. The trial for the 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery, a black man who was at the time being chased by men in pickup trucks, begins tomorrow in Georgia. But there is debate about the jury. Purpura has that story and more headlines from around the country. Pepper.
Thanks, Alyse. The defense is being accused of discrimination in the trial of Ahmaud Arbery's killing. The prosecution argued that the defense purposefully struck black jurors on the basis of their race. 12 jurors were selected in total, 11 of which are white and 1 is black. Despite initially believing discrimination occurred, the judge was convinced by the defense's reasonings for striking jurors. The trial will officially begin tomorrow. Outside the courthouse, people gathered in support of Arbery's family. The Transformative Justice Coalition, a civil rights group, organized a march beginning at the courthouse and ending at a mural of Arbery. At the rally, Arbery's father and the president of the TJC spoke.
What's wrong with what has happened in this trial? It has been racialized from the beginning, and that was done purposefully by the defense.
After the march, a prayer vigil was held. House Democrats are attempting to pass the Build Back Better bill tonight. The bill is a social safety plan that addresses the climate crisis, delivers aid to families, and expands health care access. Meanwhile, the bipartisan infrastructure bill still awaits a vote in the House. The reason for the delay? Progressives hope to pass both bills at once.
We're going to pass both bills, but in order to do so, we have to have votes for both bills, and that's where we are.
If the bills pass, they move to the Senate. A memorial service was held for fallen Pentagon police officer Corporal George Gonzalez. He died during an attack at the Pentagon Metro platform last August. Back to you in the studio.
Governor Kevin Stitt has yet to decide if he will grant clemency for death row inmate Julius Jones. The Oklahoma Pardon and Parole Board recommended clemency earlier this week. Gaylord News reporter Zaria Oates spoke with 2 national death penalty organizations about the history behind Oklahoma's use of lethal injection, which Jones faces November 18th if he is not granted clemency.
Oklahoma was the first U.S. state to legalize lethal injection for executions in 1977 as an alternative to electrocution, hanging, and the firing squad.
The idea behind lethal injection was to make it easier for the people witnessing. It's not about the prisoner, it's about the witnesses. And are they going to be traumatized?
In the 5 years before Oklahoma's death penalty was suspended in 2015, there were nearly 4,000 fewer violent crimes than there were in the 6 years executions were paused. But Death Penalty Action's Abe Bonowitz asserts that executions don't impact crime rates.
The death penalty is not a deterrent. You have to be paying attention to the news to even know that executions are happening.
Bonowitz says even when people are aware of executions, the practice doesn't stop violent crimes.
There was a woman named Carla Faye Tucker who was executed. You had to be living under a rock not to know that execution was taking place. And the very next day, a policeman was murdered just a couple hundred miles from where Carla Faye Tucker was executed.
The nonpartisan Death Penalty Information Center believes Julius Jones' execution should be postponed following last week's execution of John Grant. Witnesses say Grant vomited and convulsed several times before he died.
When it comes to Oklahoma, one would hope that with a 4th botched execution, they'll step back and say, okay, all right, we're going to put this back on hold again.
But so far, there is no indication that Oklahoma will suspend the execution procedure it pioneered 44 years ago. Zaria Oates, Gaylord News, Washington.
Death Penalty Action encourages community members to call Governor Stitt and sign petitions to remove Julius Jones from death row. More information can be found at deathpenaltyaction.org.
Well, kids ages 5 through 11 can now get vaccinated for COVID-19.
But will time pose a risk? Find out what this means for families in the upcoming holidays.
Plus, a Walmart product meant for wellness is being looked into by the CDC.
We'll tell you which shelves to avoid at the store to stay safe when we return. One major vaccine distributor is experiencing shipment delays.
Deyton is here to tell us about the shortage and more in today's Health Beat.
Thanks, guys. Moderna warns of a shortage in its COVID-19 vaccines, pushing some deliveries back to 2022. The pharmaceutical company says that they are dealing with production and shipment issues. They expect to ship between 7 million and 8 million vaccine doses, but the original projection reached up to 1 billion. Moderna is also giving priority to low-income countries. And children 5 through 11 can now be vaccinated but won't be fully protected by the start of the holiday season. For the safest holiday gatherings, the deadline for the first dose is November 19th and December 10th for the second. This allows children to be vaccinated by Christmas and other end of the year holidays, but not Thanksgiving. Officials say children won't be considered fully vaccinated until 2 weeks after their second dose. And Walmart is recalling an aromatherapy spray after it was linked to 2 deaths, including 1 child. The CDC says about 3,900 bottles of Better Homes and Gardens room spray are contaminated with a deadly tropical disease. Experts say that the infection possibly came from its manufacturers in India. The CDC recommends that people who have purchased the spray stop using immediately, double bag it, and return to Walmart for a full refund. And I bought one of those sprays unused, but I will be returning back to Walmart. Back to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Deyton. And one Norman shelter is looking for volunteers.
As the holidays approach, they're planning meals, and we'll tell you how you can help.
Plus, Peyton Galyean is here to talk about the warmth we're all hoping for this weekend. Peyton?
That's right, a warm-up is on the way, but outside those clouds are still visible throughout campus and across the rest of Oklahoma. I'll tell you when they move out of your forecast coming up. Welcome back to OU Nightly. Taking a look at the Oklahoma City skyline cam, we can see those clouds are still out and about. Currently 52 degrees in downtown Oklahoma City. A light wind at 6 miles an hour, and across the rest of the metro, low 50s as well, not getting above those mid 50s. But for the rest of Oklahoma, we're all in the same boat except Guymon. Guymon is pushing towards 70 degrees, and a lot of that has to relate to the cloud cover that is in our forecast. These clouds haven't moved out the past few days. They are still here. They are still building. You can see with the darker shaded regions of the clouds that is higher up in the atmosphere, so they can still continue to build. But out in the panhandle, they are clear, allowing that sun to come down and warm up the temperatures. Out in eastern Oklahoma for tonight, a freeze warning is in effect and a frost advisory is in effect for this blue shaded region. I wouldn't be surprised if you wake up here in Norman with a little bit of frost as well, as we are pretty close to that area of Oklahoma as well. But for this weekend, be sure to set your clocks back an hour. We get an extra hour of sleep. You can tell that Saturday the sun is going to rise closer to 8 a.m., but Sunday morning closer to 7. So we do have to take into account the sun is rising and setting an hour later, but you do get that extra hour of sleep. Going into next week, we do have a warmer weekend coming up, and into next week we have an Arctic blast that is going to make its way through. Friday we're going to warm up and cloudy. Saturday another warm day as we clear out. The rest of next week mid 70 temperatures, partly cloudy skies, but as we get closer to next week those temperatures do continue to get back down as well. Kolby and Alyse.
Thanks, Peyton. One Norman organization is looking to give back this Thanksgiving, but they need your help. Norman Food and Shelter is expecting about 1,000 guests at their annual Thanksgiving Day meal. This feast will be free to anyone in the community who might be in need, but with Thanksgiving Day just 3 weeks away, they still need volunteers.
So Food and Shelter really relies heavily on volunteers to come out and make this event possible. It takes hundreds of volunteers to show up early and cook and prepare the meal, but we also need people who want to deliver meals out to senior citizens and people with disabilities.
The meal will be at Norman High starting at 11 a.m. on Thanksgiving Day, and if you can't volunteer, they're also looking for donations.
It's a bye week for the OU football team, but there's still plenty of news from Oklahoma Memorial Stadium.
Stone Weber is here to give us some more information on the Sooners' spot in the rankings.
The Sooners slot in at a pretty surprising spot in the first CFP rankings of the year, and big news surrounding one of the MLB's best players. Sports is next. Welcome back to Studio A. I'm Stone Weber, and it's time for the most exciting part of the show. It's time for sports. Women's gymnastics released their schedule for their upcoming season. The Sooners have 4 home meets on their schedule, including Denver and TWU coming to town, but the home opener is January 9th against Alabama. The college football playoff rankings were released Tuesday, and the biggest surprise of the night was the 9-0 Sooners sitting at number 8. It has been a roller coaster season so far for Lincoln Riley's squad, with a true freshman QB coming in and leading the team to a win against Texas, to struggling against Kansas. But OU safety Galyean Turner-Yell says the Sooners are hitting their stride at the right time.
In order to get in those games that that everyone loves to play in at the end of the season, that you have to win in November, because that is when those decisions are made. And so we make it a big deal to play our best ball in the month of November. And like you said, I haven't had to experience a loss in November here, and I just hope to keep the streak going without losing.
The 5-time national champion OU softball team announced their 2022 conference schedule. The girls opened Big 12 play with the home series March 25th through 27th against Baylor. The Red River Showdown will take place April 14th through 16th in Austin. And late in the season, the Sooners host Bedlam at Marita Hines starting on May 6th. A report coming out of the NBA today as Phoenix Suns owner Robert Sarver has been accused of racism and misogyny in the workplace. An investigation has been launched into the owner, with multiple reports of racial slurs from current and former employees of the Suns organization. Sarver has denied the allegations. Just days after the World Series, a baseball superstar has announced his retirement. San Francisco Giants catcher Buster Posey announced today that he is calling it a career. The 2010 NL Rookie of the Year also won 3 World Series titles and took home MVP honors in 2012. Odell Beckham Jr. was excused from practice for the 2nd time in 2 days. This comes in light of the comments made by Odell Beckham Sr. Beckham Sr. called out Baker Mayfield for not throwing the ball to his son. The Browns and the Bengals square off in an in-state matchup on Sunday at noon. Thursday Night Football kicks off in Indy tonight as the New York Jets take on the Indianapolis Colts. Mike White came in for the injured Zach Wilson and led the Jets to their 2nd win, while also leading the league in passing yards last week. Kickoff is set for 7:20 p.m. What can you do in 5 minutes? Make a sandwich? Do your homework? Well, Central Michigan's Khalil Pimpleton can do a lot in 5 minutes. The Chips took on the Western Michigan Broncos in some Wednesday night action. Check out the clock at the bottom of the screen. 5 minutes left in the second. Pimpleton gets his first touchdown on a 70-yard punt, making defenders look silly. Shortly after that, he hauls in an 11-yard scoring pass from freshman QB Daniel Richardson. And for the icing on the cake, with just seconds remaining in the half, he fields a punt at his own 4, and he's off and running, making 3 defenders miss along the way, 96 yards to the house. With Pimpleton's heroics, the Chippewas came out on top, 42-30. What memorable things have you guys done in 5 minutes?
5 minutes is not a lot of time, but I know if my mom was coming home, I could clean my room faster than anybody.
Oh, I agree. And on that same note, I could take the chicken out of the freezer and it'd be completely thawed in 5 minutes.
Yeah, and with all the traffic in the South Oval, it is the perfect place to promote your business.
And now, just in time for this cold weather, one business is here to warm up students for a good cause. Straight ahead on OU Nightly.
I'm Jayden Brannon at the OU Nightly Update Desk. The U.S. Department of Justice is suing Texas over new voting restrictions that the federal government says will violate federal voting rights law. Texas Senate Bill 1 was signed into law in September 2021. The complaint contends that bill rejects mail-in ballots, which harms the rights of voters with limited English proficiency, deployed military members, and overseas voters. Back to you at the desk.
Well, you may have seen the colorful cold weather gear on the South Oval this week.
This one's not too colorful, but it's made by Chaskey Fair Trade Goods, who made its way to Norman to educate students on the importance of fair trade and staying warm.
The sweaters, beanies, masks, and gloves are all handmade in Bolivia using alpaca wool. They're then imported to the United States for people to buy.
The sweaters are $54 and all proceeds go directly back to the Bolivians that made them.
You should go check out the Chaskey Fair trade tables tomorrow by the Union.
And we may be shedding these warm sweaters this weekend, but Peyton can tell us when we'll need them again. Peyton?
Well, if you're heading out tonight, definitely keep those sweaters on. As we go throughout the evening, temperatures are going to drop into the upper 40s, but as we go into next week, we're going to be back into the 70s. So definitely shut them at the end of the next week, but keep them on tonight.
Well, thank you for watching OU Nightly.
Be sure to tune in every weekday live at 4:30.
Go get yourself a sweater. Have a good night.